Okay, so we're continuing our talks on what is good and what is bad, and why does it really matter? Uh, why are we talking about good, bad, and understanding the concept of good, bad, and what is beyond that can change your life. It can revolutionize your life completely because we are running continuously back and forth between good and bad, and the whole life consists of nothing but running. And yet, there is another big entity that really exists, and that is totally without our focus of attention. So, whatever is worthless in life is spread between good and bad. Whatever is worthwhile is beyond good and beyond bad. And that's something we never really work on. So, the run that we do all the time between good, bad, run for the good, avoid the bad, all those things, likes, dislikes, ultimately, we're doing it for one reason. We want to be happy. If we run away from carrots because we hate carrots, we run away towards carrot cake because we like carrot cake. All these things, running and avoiding objects and running after people or objects or situation, ultimately we do it for a single reason, happiness. But we start with the presumption that you have to be unhappy to look for happiness. So we don't realize that contention, that ultimately our state dictates that we are unhappy. In what way? Until we reach the goal to become happy, that's another story. So there was a story of Swarupanand, who is a follower of Chinmayanan. Once he went to Singapore, and he was kind of lost. He was told to go a certain place, and they dropped him off, but from that he didn't know where to go. So there was all of a sudden he saw a guy, an Indian kid, walking around taking a bike actually, and he stopped him to ask, where is this particular lecture hall where I'm supposed to go? So he says, all right, come with me, Swami, I'll show you where to go. So as they're walking, they're just conversing, and he asks, so what do you do now? He says, well, I attend the college. And he says, do you like it? He says, I do it because I have to do it. Ultimately, I just want to get a degree. So Swami says, how about if I get you a degree? He said, well, what do I have to do for it? There must be a catch. He said, no catch. We have a big organization going on. We can give out degrees, and we have institutions, and you can get degree, no problem. So he says, that will be nice. He says, then what do I do with the degree? He says, what are you going to do with the degree? Say, once you get the degree, what are you going to do? He says, then I'm going to be looking for a job. But I thought you said you just wanted a degree. But now you say you were looking for a job. He said, I didn't say anything about job. I can get you a degree, but I can't get you a job. He says, all right, tell me, why do you want the job? He says, well, so that I can make money. Oh, we have no problem. We have a big organization. We get tons of money. I can get you, tomorrow I can transfer money into your account. I said, that would be nice. How much do you want? Nothing less. No kids nowadays want anything less. $100 million. Okay. All right. I can manage. We have a big organization and all that. He says, oh, that will be nice. Then I can just spend the money and do whatever. I said, wait. He says, Swami says, I didn't say anything about spending. Money will be in your account, but you can't spend. So guy says, what do I do with that money then? What's the purpose? He says, I don't know. You just said that you wanted money, right? He says, okay. So what do you want to do with the money? He says, well, I want to buy a Ferrari. He says, okay. So then what are you going to do with the Ferrari? He says, so I can show off and maybe get a girlfriend or two or something like that and be happy. Ultimately, you're doing all these things, journey to become happy. And we never realize that ultimate goal, our short-term goals is what dictates that particular goal becomes happiness. And not realizing that our state of happiness is not there. 99% of the times we are unhappy. And that's why we want to do the things to become happy. If you ask people, he says, an average person, he says, are you having a good life? Oh yeah, it's beautiful. I'm very happy. Every weekend there are parties. Every do this. I have a couple of drinks here and there. I do this. I make some money and then do this and that and all that. But you ask them, I'm asking you about your real state of your mind. Are you happy? And they may not be able to give the answers, but their day-to-day life tells you. He says, why do you do all these parties? Why do you go to all these functions? Why do you all do this? Why do you drink? Why do you do? So that I become happy. He said, there you go. That's like oxymoron, right? First he says he's happy, but he has to do all these things to become happy.
Right.
So ultimately he's not happy. So basically he's happy in this roller coaster of life. And this roller coaster makes you occupied so much that you think that this is it. That life cannot get better than that. But life can be better than that. Your state of your mind 24/7 can be a happy state of mind. And then you can do whatever you want to do. You will have happiness, but you will not be doing it for happiness. You will be doing it as a play. But your state of happiness is what we're talking about. So, the problem is the mind always makes us run. Mind decides what is good, what is bad, why I like this thing better. This state of the world of duality is what captures the attention of the mind. And at the mind level, people are not happy. And the problem is, why aren't they happy? The reason is, the mind has a dual nature. It is spiritual, and it's looking into material life. So, the spiritual aspect of the mind, nobody thinks about. They always think about the material life. And the material life is made out of matter. Matter makes people. Matter makes objects. Matter creates situations. All these things are material. And the mind is somehow hooked on it. But that's not where the mind should be. Mind is spiritual too. It is created by Paramatma. It is coming from within us. It has tremendous capacity. It can do a lot of things, but it is not going in the proper direction. Mind always runs from objects to objects to objects. So there is a story of a fakir who used to go and teach a king about the spiritual life. And after a couple of years, king starts understanding the concepts. So then fakir says, now at this point I realize that I should not come here anymore. After all, Quran says that king should be going to the fakir and not the other way around. I did it for all the favors for you. I did a favor. So maybe it's time now we should come to my hut and get some lessons. And I hope that by now at least you got some taste of spirituality so that you understand what I'm talking about. So king says, I understand. So he says, okay, whenever you have chance, come on over and we'll talk about the sermons, spiritual lessons and all that. So one day, king decides to go there. And his wife was at the hut. And he says, why don't you just wait here? My husband is doing some farming. He's at the end of the other farm. I'm going to go and call him. But meanwhile, why don't you wait? She put a little desk kind of thing on the ground. So king says, no, it's okay. I'll just stroll around and don't bother, You go ahead and call him. So wife thought that maybe this is not a proper, desk or kind of, so she brings a little chadar, like a bed sheet kind of thing, torn apart and all that. She puts it on top of that. After all, the fakir was very poor. So she puts on it, and he says, how about sit on it now, So king says, no, it's okay, don't worry about me, just go and get your husband. So wife couldn't understand. He says, maybe it is too hot outside. Why won't king sit? So he says, why don't you come inside the hut? It's a little cooler inside. Maybe that, and she put the bed down, and he said, maybe you'll feel comfortable. So king says, don't worry about me. I'm going to be fine. You just go get your husband. So finally says, okay, there's nothing else I can do. So she goes and talks to her husband. He says, I don't understand this king. Why won't he sit? So the fakir starts laughing. He says, you don't understand. He is Samrat. He is a king. He's not used to sitting on poor people's huts and small desks and torn apart bed sheets and things like that. He will sit in his throne. He's not going to sit in a small places like that. And the fakir started laughing. So his wife says, why are you laughing? So fakir says, that's the state of everyone's mind. Mind goes into the material objects, never finds a pleasure. Even if it finds a pleasure, it's a temporary pleasure. And then comes back, becomes restless, looks for something else, goes there, gets the temporary pleasure, not happy, comes back. Why? Because mind's sit is not matter. Mind's sit is Paramatma. Sihasan, the throne that is provided for the mind to rest, is the ultimate God, ultimate Paramatma. That's the spiritual nature, the spiritual consciousness that's creating the whole world. If you notice, the matter is finite. It has its own limitations. How fast can you run? Marathon runner, 13 miles an hour. Fine. No more than that. How fast can a mind run? No limits. You can think about the moon, the galaxies, the stars. It's very subtle. It's very swift. It's very powerful. It's a lot more powerful. That's why the mind dictates the body. The body is made out of matter, but the mind is a lot better than that. If the mind is not there, body does not have that much value. A retarded person can't perform any duties of a social function, of a social order. The mind really dictates your behavior, but mind is superior. And that's why mind should dictate the body. But mind has its own limitations too. Limitations is the knowledge. Mind goes only to the places what it knows about. The knowledge is its limiting factor. I can go and think about a galaxy which I had seen a picture about, but there are billions of galaxies I have never seen. How can I think about it? It will remain only as a concept, but that's about it. So limitations of the mind are the knowledge that it contains, and that's about it. But consciousness is a lot broader. It's infinite. After all, every single knowledge that is gathered by the mind, you multiply by that with billions of peoples and billions and billions and billions of animals which are out there, which are gathering knowledge continuous on basis, all that is still falls short of consciousness, because consciousness is infinite. So what would be the proper seat for the mind? The consciousness. Because mind itself is so powerful. And that's why it does not find permanent happiness anywhere. So the permanent happiness will come only if we train our mind to sit comfortably with Paramatma, with the consciousness. So once the mind sits on the throne, then only it can perform the duties as a king. King's duties are what? And a good king will be doing something good for the citizens. The body is described, we talked about it, as a city with 9 gates. 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, the ears, the mouth, and the 2 holes. Total 9 holes through which our energy flows out, and we perceive the world also. But the rest is impervious. Skin cannot really do anything except the touch. So all this outside world is grasped through those 9 holes through which we contact. Now imagine a king sitting in that city, and every single gates that we're talking about controlled by the guards. And the guards are not doing the job. The job of the guards is to control and not the enemies walk in. And the king's job is to make sure all the guards perform. But every single guard that is sitting there has started taking bribes. Every time we have falafel, gulab jamun, okay, let it come.
Right.
As long as each guard takes a little bribe, the tongue gets the taste, it's fine.
He doesn't care about
The nostril
what
gets
happens
the
to
smell,
stomach.
doesn't matter. Eyes likes the objects, keep reading that, keep looking at, whatever. So enemies are infiltrating into the city. And the king doesn't care. That's the worst part. If the king cared, none of this would happen. But the king is the highest seat of our mind. But the mind itself has joined in the bribery system. He says, okay, I like it. King says, no problem. I benefit, so who cares about citizens? There are billions of cells that we have in our body are the citizens. Innocent citizens are getting the burden. All the cheesecake that you eat, ultimately the heart is suffering. But nobody cares. The king is not sitting in its throne. The seat of the king is the consciousness. The consciousness should be dictating the behavior of the king, but it's not happening. A good king will be working tirelessly, not discriminating within its citizen, and not expecting anything from the citizens, but continuously keep on doing his duties as a king. But he will not remind himself to be a king if he's not sitting on the throne. He's coming out of the throne and walking throughout the city, acting like a regular citizen for his personal interest. No wonder that city will never survive. 45, 50, you get a heart attack and you die. All these things are reality. If we don't control those gates, we're going to be doomed. And God's men who are in charge of that should be again controlled by the king. And the king should be sitting on the throne of consciousness. All that vertical integration will give you smooth life. And okay, if your body gets healthy, that's not the end of the story. Then the mind does not have to think about the body anymore. Now it doesn't have to worry that I'm overweight, my cholesterol is high, my sugar is high, I have to do this, I have to do that. I'm telling you right now, 90% of the people, that's all they think about. They still have body consciousness. Body is something that you should forget about. If your life is vertically integrated, body is the last thing you have to worry about. And that's the purpose of yoga. The vertical integration. When the vertical integration happens, you don't have to worry about. See, in Sanskrit, they have a beautiful word. Sanskrit is a great language because it was developed by the people who were realized. They had self-realization. Vedana is pain, suffering. If I have a headache, then I know my head exists. When I don't have a headache, I don't talk about it.
You don't know.
I don't go and talk about to the people that I don't have a headache. I don't have my pain in the arms. I don't have pain in the legs. You don't talk about something you don't have. So Vedana and Ved came from the similar root. Ved is what? Knowledge. So knowledge of an organ of the body or a part of the body is Vedana, and knowledge of the consciousness is represented in Vedas. So Ved is the knowledge. So the whole purpose of the yoga, meditation, and all that is ultimately going higher. So by living a healthy life is only one cornerstone that you have covered. But has to be beyond that. So the body stops bothering you, so then you can concentrate on the mind. And of course, mind, being it's so swift, is the storage of anxiety, the grief and moh, maya, hatred, egos, all these things. If your body is not at rest, if body takes so much attention, how can you go further up? So giving an attention to the mind requires also that ultimately you can do something about the mind. And when that starts dying out, then you go higher. So this is how you vertically integrate, and then you move on. So it's like a typical mind, being it a king, would have three main objectives in life. No vacation, it will continuously stay busy as a king to take care of its citizens. So you continuously keep doing your duties. So that's one thing. No vacation, no expectation. You don't expect anything from the society because you are sufficient in yourself. Any duties of life, you should be self-sufficient. You should be able to do it on your own. Whether somebody helps you or not, that should not be your object of life. And the third thing is no discrimination. That you should be happy in any situation. And that's where our main topic of discussion comes. What is good, what is bad? Good and bad is created by our beliefs. So just because we have a belief does not make it a better belief than somebody else's belief. So at that point, you can start appreciating and see the similarities between people rather than the differences. At the belief level, there's always going to be differences. But when you rise above the beliefs, then you have started rising above the mind. So meditation basically makes you realize the spiritual nature of your mind. Mind has a material nature, but it has a spiritual nature also. And that's where it's a transition zone where the consciousness communicates with the matter, material world. And this is our bridge to connect. And we are standing right there where we are leaning towards the material side. We just have to lean towards the spiritual side. Because when we select something, one over the other, we choose one thing over the other, we're limiting ourselves. That limits because mind has tremendous potential to go all over. Mind is a beautiful gift given to us. But by selecting something and choosing something, we're becoming finite, like a matter. Matter is finite. A TV has such and such shape. Computer has such and such shape. As soon as the new iPhone comes in, Samsung dies out. iPhone comes. iPhone dies out. Samsung comes. So, but we get locked up with small objects, and our focus, mind, attention, energy, everything goes into small little objects, and that gives us so much pleasure, not realizing those objects are also going to disappear. That permanent state of happiness will never come if we keep changing the objects. Chasing and choosing is going to be a waste of life. And at the end of life, all these objects that you did like or dislike, you have to leave them behind and go from here anyway without getting any glimpse of that permanent state of happiness that we're talking about, the bliss. So when we stop choosing, we become infinite. Our infinite potential, which everyone has, comes only if we realize that our connection to the material world is meaningless. Because whatever we are hooking up to is just an image that coincides with our likes at that particular moment. But then our likes are going to change. And of course, the object of pleasure is going to change. The same girl that you liked and got married doesn't look beautiful anymore. Right? And it's changing. She's controlled by the nature. You are controlled by the nature. And then the fights break out. I say, well, because he wanted something that he's not getting anymore. She wanted something she's not getting anymore. There is a continuous friction because there is nothing wrong with the object. The object was as it is. The girl was beautiful only because you thought it was beautiful. She was beautiful. It may not be necessarily to anybody else. To you, how you look at it. But then the beauty starts slipping away. Then the man looked very handsome. And then all of a sudden he realized that he's not that handsome anymore. Because, why? You will say what is wrong with it. And I would say there is nothing wrong with it either. You are correct. Ultimately, remember what we talked about. We all are looking for happiness. Except that we, at that moment, thought that this object or this person will make me happy. But ultimately, our goal was more than material, the happiness. Happiness is a spiritual experience. The consciousness is a storehouse of happiness. It's the ultimate bliss that anywhere you can have. So our journey is always towards that. Whether we're going through a sansar or we're going within, either way, we're looking for happiness. There is nothing wrong with it. The problem is that happiness isn't, in a true happiness, we're talking about the bliss, is the infinite state. And we're looking from a finite person. She is just not capable of giving you what you're looking for. Or he is not capable of giving to her what she's looking for. So we both are looking, but we both are looking in a wrong direction. That's all. But ultimately, your efforts are correct. You are correct. Your object is correct. Your hard work is correct. Just the direction is wrong. That's all. So that realization is very important. So that's why it's very important to come out of the good and the bad. Ultimately, if you're looking for a permanent state of bliss, that is within us. And that does not mean you have to run away from the society, but you have to realize the insufficiency of the world to give you what you're looking for. Subconsciously, we all are looking to be happy permanently, whether we know it or not. So the mind expects something. Mind is focused towards the material world, and it wants something, chooses the objects, chases the objects, doesn't like it, drops the objects, picks up something new. All that goes on forever. The ideas that what we have, the ideas of the good and bad, that we have to start dropping. Because ultimately, when we merge with the consciousness, the same consciousness is going to shine in everyone. Whether you're black, you're not inferior. Whether you're white, you're not superior. Whether you're tall, you're not necessarily more handsome. When you're short, not necessarily you're ugly. All those concepts of better and good and worse, all those concepts are haunting us and keeping our mind occupied in running after the object so much that it takes us our chance away from ability to communicate Paramatma, find the higher throne to sit on. So we have to start moving beyond. The another problem is that being in charge as a king requires certain attention. So all these objects of pleasure do not really keep sneaking in. But the mind wants to relax. Mind wants to forget its duties of spirituality and little by little get sucked into all these objects of pleasure. So that's basically relaxation of the mind. The active duty of the mind as a king slips away. And that because the awareness that we have is not properly developed. Our awareness of our spiritual nature comes in again through continuous meditation and realizing. Meditation is basically perfection of your awareness. So anytime when we do perform any kind of things in the world, if we're doing with awareness, no sins will ever happen because you're continuously aligned and synchronized with Paramatma. And when that synchronization happens, all the wrong things are just not going to happen. The objects going to lose its importance to attract you. The objects are not going to have the same power that it would have if you had full awareness. So awareness is lacking. Awareness is slacking. And awareness is, when it slacks, then you become kind of hypnotized by the world. And under that hypnotic state, we continuously walk around. And then that hypnotic state prevents us from reaching to our spiritual state. So spirituality is something else. Yesterday I had a patient who came in. It's very good. It's the last thing you would expect from that guy about anything about spirituality. Now his parents are very staunch Christians. So they always ask him, he says, why don't you go to the church and this and that? And I think they're Jewish. No, I think Christian. He was talking to a priest, yeah, so probably Christian. So he says, so he says, I was talking to the priest, and he says, why do you think that God will punish us? And why do you think God will make us happy? And what is God? And he says, so I asked him a question. He says, is God, now he had looked at those two Cosmos series, where, you remember that they said, like, the original, in the medieval times, they say God created the world and then he rested. So the God is separate and the world is separate and all these things. So that means the God is not infinite. So there was a thinker that they said that supposing if I throw an arrow and it reaches to a wall and falls, that means that is the end of the world. But then what is beyond that? And then I shoot another arrow to go to another wall. But if it keeps on going, then there is proof that the world is infinite. So he believed in the infinite world. Infinite world is the spiritual world. The God itself, he believed is spiritual. And the same thing, so now this guy comes and talks to me. He says, I don't believe in the God and human being separate. And I believe that if the God is separate, then he has a limit. It's a very common argument. He says, that means you are not God. So yes, we are not. Christianity says that you are not God, you have to become God. And they are hooked on the material shape of people. And then based on that, they say that this is how the God is, God created. So God is a separate entity. So all those Christianity ideas are falling apart nowadays. So now he says that I believe in God. He says, my mother says that I don't believe, but I believe in God, but I believe in the spiritual aspect of the God.
Yeah, infinite God.
Infinite. And he says that this world is like a frozen river. Part of the water is frozen, that's what we are, the material world, and the rest is flowing with energy. And there is an E equal to mc square. There is a continuous exchange between spirit and matter. We are all one. I mean, this guy has never had done all the wrong things in life, but I would have never expected him to come out and say that, but he did. So it was interesting. So the problem is the grip of the material life is so much on us that we can never think of anything else. But if we have the capacity to open up our eyes of awareness and go within, and we don't do it, it's a shame. The life is short. Life is blossoming as it is. Every kid is born. The spirituality, the spiritual consciousness is throwing kids into the world. Beautiful kids are being born. Beautiful flowers are coming out. The sunshines are coming in. Nights are coming out beautiful. There's tremendous amount of beauty everywhere. People are beautiful. All that opportunity is here for a short time. There is a very narrow window that is open where we will not exist at some point. We are created as a temporary phenomenon and again will become spiritual. But that opportunity to realize our nature is right now, but we choose to remain blind. That's the like Gandhari and Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was blind with birth. But Gandhari, you think that being a so dedicated wife, chooses to put the blindfold on her own eyes. But it's very significant. It's very symbolic. Some people are born blind, but there are a lot of others who choose to be blind. Our blindness towards God is hurting us, and we don't even realize that. Life goes on, and when the last moment comes, believe me, we all will be sorry that we did not do what we had a chance to do. So the first thing, and those are the only satisfactions that are going to stay. How much money you accumulated, how big houses you built, this and that, all that has no value. Right after you leave, your buildings are going to be cracking down and people will be, whatever. Right. Doesn't matter, but you are not walking away with any of those things. So true investment into the spiritual nature of our body is what's going to, of our mind rather, is going to take us to Paramatma and make us realize. So our eyes have to open up. And we all have that capacity. And we all have that consciousness playing within, but we don't do it. And at the same time, we realize that it's not that easy either. Part of the reason is because we are, told by our religious leaders that you have to do this rituals, you have to do this, you have to do that. You have to go to the temple, bow down to the statues, this and that and all that. We are being told to really steer away from the spiritual nature of the consciousness. Our attachment to the matter becomes so much, and we consider that our religion is finished. All these kriyas and rituals that you do deals with the material aspect of the world. How can a matter take you to the spirit? How can it? It's just not possible. If that was the case, you write 1,000,000 times rhyme, I will write 2,000,000 times rhyme. If you go to a temple 15 times, I'll go 20 times. So does that make me more eligible for Swarg? Think again. Actual spiritual practice is going to take us there. Where you go within and you start dissecting your own mind. You find out what your mind is made up of, how the thoughts are generated, how the mind exists, what is beyond the mind, what is the spiritual nature, all the energy that's flowing in, All this practice, that's going to take you into the spiritual side of yourself. But the material side, you're going to be sucked into the rest of your life. But that's what we've been told since we were a kid. So all these dharma gurus are taking us in the wrong direction and preventing us from going into the... So we really have to go within. Now, if we really try to analyze the whole life and try to go within, there are three tools that we have. We have body, we have mind, and we have soul. The body is the densest part of consciousness. It's like you hold a matchstick and you expect somebody to see the light out of it. It's not going to happen. And yet the fire is located within the matchstick. But just by matchstick by itself is not able to guide anyone, is not able to generate the light. So we are too hooked up with the material aspect of the religions. Unless there is a synchronized soul and the mind with it, your rituals have no value. And if your soul and mind is synchronized, it has tremendous value. But nobody tells you that. Do this and you're fine. And everybody believes that because it's easy. That's all they have to do. So body has its own limitation. And the second is the mind. At the mind level, we can talk about consciousness, talk about religions, talk about gods. I can make arguments, you can make your own arguments, and all that generates the different philosophies. Jainism, Hinduism, Muslims, all those things, they can talk it out for eons, and we still have not solved which is the best religion in the world. No matter which kind of clothes you wear, it doesn't really matter. Ultimately, it all stays at the mind level. That's like talking about how to operate on the brain and actually doing it. It's two different things. Talking about being a brain surgeon and doing a brain surgery are two different things. So everyone has to do that experiment themselves. Then only the results will be revealed to you. You have to take the exam to pass. No one else can do it for you. So that also has its own limitation. So now we're left with the third tool, the soul. The soul is a seat of emotions. Emotions, bhav. All these things are very powerful because soul controls the mind controls the body, and that's how we perform. So doing efforts at the material level, at the body level, gives you very little really flexibility to reach anywhere. I always give an example. If you're driving at 65 miles an hour on the left side at the fast lane and you have to reach to the slowest lane, how difficult would it be to pick up the whole car and put it there? But you make a little bit adjustment on your steering wheel and in few minutes you're there. So bhav, vichar and kriya. All our efforts will be very productive and very useful if we invest at the bhav level. Bhav is something that takes priority over all the other things of life. Bhav removes your beliefs. It drops your beliefs. Bhav removes your wrong ideas, anger, grief. I always give an example. If you tell your wife that I have 5 friends coming tonight and cook, forget it. But our son is coming, no problem. It's right there. Bhav. Bhav changes everything. Bhav dictates, it supersedes your negative emotions. It has that much power. That's love. Whatever you call it, love, ahimsa, karuna, they are all the same. Ultimately, at the bhav level, the world seems totally different. That's where we require investment. Investment should be at the bhav level. Bhakti is also an expression of bhav, if it is done in a proper way, not in the traditional way, the rituals and all that you call bhakti. It's not bhakti. Bhakti is the ultimate refinement of the bhav. The bhav has to be within you. If you don't have that bhav, there is nothing, that all the rituals have no value. The bhav is the ultimate tool that is given to us. It's like God not only created us, He nurtures us all the time. There is a continuous consciousness that is manifesting itself if we have an eye to look at it. You were tired, you went to bed, you wake up in the morning, and you are so fully recharged, ready to do whatever the next day comes, whatever the day brings, you're ready to perform. Who took care of all those energies? It's all automatically being done. All the beautiful things that are happening are very subtle, very automatic, and everything happens its own pace. I started drinking coconut water, right? I just give you an example. So I have a compost pile, so I put it in that. And there is a lot of wildlife in our area.
Yeah.
So every little scrap of that coconut meat that's in there will come and scrap it. It's all cleaned out right next day. And we do it, we don't even appreciate that there is at every segment of the society, somebody is performing, somebody is hungry. All that hunger, all that effort that people are doing for the hunger, all the animals and all small insects, everybody is functioning in this world. No vacation, no discrimination, no expectation. Everybody is just performing their own things. And why he or she or what an animal came doesn't matter. But the reason it ate was also so that it gets nutritionally adequate nutrition so it can have babies. And there's another family being supported. I mean, if you think about all these things at every single level, Paramatma shines. There is a love between mother and the child. All those things are happening right in front of us. We saw the movie Chimpanzee, right? In the remote corners of the near the Congo, and then all that subtle things are happening, like the story of a small chimpanzee, which was only a baby, and is carried on the mother's back all the time and all that. It's in the remote corners, in every single aspects, there is something happening. Chirag sent me a video this morning. It's a beautiful video at TED Talk. It shows about the life in a deep underwater, where light does not reach at all. Did you see that?
Yeah.
So fascinating. You should see that. And there, the communication is only light, but the self-created light. So there is so much bioluminescence. So that all these animals, they generate light,
Right.
and they communicate with each other. Sometimes to attack someone, to create a scare, so that to mesmerize the prey and catch it, or to communicate at the courtship level, the male and the female. All that drama of life is going on all the time. And we are part of the drama. We are only part of the drama. We are not different than that drama. Every single human being, every single creature is part of that drama. And they are entitled to continue and perform that drama. So when you think about all these things, you are practicing bhav. When you're thinking about all these things, you're practicing awareness. Awareness that is needed, the tool that is given to us. So Paramatma not only just created us, doing all these things, nurtures us, but at the same time also gave us a tool to come out of all these things. When I expect love from my wife, or wife expects love from the husband, and we falling short, we keep on fighting and keep on expecting permanent happiness. Instead of that, if the bhav comes in, then you start realizing that he or she in the same boat that you are also. He or she is also expecting the same thing, except the direction is wrong. Her direction is wrong, your direction is wrong. All the directions are wrong. So we have to refocus ourselves and then go in the right direction. But to teach somebody, you have to do that first. If our direction is wrong, obviously, then the other direction is also going to come. There's going to be friction all the time. So we have to start realizing that what is the ultimate purpose of our life, that we are born in this world. Our purpose is to realize Paramatma. And Paramatma is the seat of all these emotions. Even at emotional level, you can get carried away. That's why, see, females by default are better suited to reach the spiritual, because they're full of bhav. That emotion, when you talk about emotions, you talk about females. It's always the case. But at the same time, they get carried away so much also. So emotionally, they get so much. So the next step is where you synchronize with consciousness. They miss it out. And that's why so we have to learn from females. Females have to learn from males. And that's the whole purpose of life. We have to, the female nature of ourselves, we have We have X and we have Y chromosomes. We all are built into all those emotions. But only by proper attention to our mind, we're going to realize our female aspect, male aspect, and then ultimate merger of the two. The Paramatma is the only male. We all are females. We converge, and then we reach to this state of bliss. So, small things in life will teach us if we pay attention to that. There was a story of 4 friends. They were playing tennis match, doubles. And out of 4, one guy was very argumentative. Every time the ball falls here or there, there's like a 15 minutes of arguments. No, this is... So after all, after almost half an hour, 45 minutes, one guy couldn't take it anymore. He says, you know what? No matter whichever you look at it, whether you win or we win, we love you because you're our friend. Immediately the guy got the message. He says, after all, we are here to play.
Right.
What is so important about winning or losing or hating and loving and all these things? We are all here to share this dance of life that is happening without getting attached to the material aspect. Connecting at the consciousness level is ultimately going to take us to the higher levels. And we have to remember that all the time. You may have an argument with your son or your daughter or something, but you know what? When it really comes to, and if the bhav is prevalent, you will realize that arguments have no value. After all, who are you talking about? Your son. So he said, all right, it's better to lose argument, but the love takes over all the time. So small things, then you start experiencing the love. What really happens when you drop the argument? You're dropping your ego. Your desire to win an argument with your son or your daughter or your wife, what are you really doing? You're trying to win, you're manifesting your ego versus her ego or his ego is coming. And the friction is of the egos. But when you decide that I'm going to practice my bhav, my love for my son or my daughter or for my wife, at that point you're dropping your identifications. So as soon as the ego drops, the Paramatma shines, no matter what. He's always there. There is nothing empty in this universe. No matter where you go, Paramatma is manifesting, wherever it is. So Paramatma is looking for an opportunity. Your ego is coming in the way. And when the ego is there, you cannot realize Paramatma. So these are small techniques, small things you can practice. And using that emotional, the love that you have, using as a thread, a small thread, like a sunlight ray, ultimately makes you reach to the sun itself. So, in any way you look at it, you will say that love means I'm dissolving myself. And why is the love so beautiful? Because there is no ego. The absence of ego makes the life beautiful for you, for everyone, and everybody around you. And the person who does not have that kind of attitude, the ego is the most powerful. I have to win every argument, whether it's my friend or my wife or my husband or my children. I have to be right all the time. He or she is living a very miserable life. There was one kid who came to Ramanujan and was a saint, and Ramanuj. And then he says, can you teach me how to reach to the realization of God? So Ramanuj says that, have you loved anybody in life? He says, no. Shastra says you should not love anybody. This material world is no good. Sansar is a death trap. You have to walk away from all this, and then only you can reach to Paramatma. So Ramanuj says, really, think about it. Have you ever loved anybody? Or anything, even a puppy or anything? He said, no. I want to stay away from material love. I want spiritual love. Ramanuj had tears in his eyes. He says, you know what? I'm sorry. I cannot help you. Without realizing the material world's love, you cannot learn spiritual love. These are the places where we are thrown, and this is where our real dynamic life is there. If we keep our eyes open and awareness open, there is a lot to learn. Small things. Even if guy may be hating everybody in the world, but there must be one person, or nothing but nothing, like a puppy that he may be having as a pet, at least gets his full love. For him or her, He's ready to drop everything. And that dropping is the dropping your for identifications. So arguments are not important. Love is more important. They say make babies, not war, right? I hope the advice doesn't go too far. So you analyze and you ask yourself all these thought scenarios. Say you are in a temple. Temple catches a fire. Your son is there, and the statue of Krishna is there. And you've been described as a very devotee, and you describe and worship Krishna all the time. And you have two things to choose, either the statue or your son. Who will you save? You will save your son. That's the dynamic love. That's the ultimate expression of consciousness. Statue is a statue. You can always get another statue. At that time, the devotion for the statue falls apart. So, real interactive environment is where you see the consciousness shining. And that's what you have to take advantage of. Real people, if you cannot love your own friends or your family, you cannot love Paramatma. So much for today.
Okay. Very nice.